What's going on? It is Coach AJ Lew, and I want to welcome you to the Inspired Efforts podcast. I got a question for you, like I normally do. Okay, do you think that environment plays a big role on the outcomes in your life? So, for example, if you live in a certain place or if you spend your time around certain people, do you think that that is important? And do you think it will have an impact on the outcome of not only your life, but your goals, the different things that you're involved in? Do you think it plays a major factor? And some people would be like, hell yeah, like absolutely, 100%. There's no doubt about it. But then I also know people that say, hey, your environment doesn't mean shit, right? Those are just excuses. But let's examine it a little more, okay? So, like I normally do, you're starting to see the trend, right? I have a story for you, okay? I have a story for you. So, this story is kind of two parts, and I'll tell you it. So, the first part is I remember, okay, so back when I was in high school, I told you guys about Coach Stidham, who was 6'4", 330 pounds, and Coach Stidham, man, he was an intense guy, right? Super intense guy. And I remember we were in the weight room after my sophomore football season, right? So football season ended in November. We had our summer break or our winter break, and then we came back to school in January, and we were in the weight room that first day. And I remember Coach Stidham requested that all of us linemen come over and get into the squat rack. And so he let us warm up really quick, and none of us were really that strong, but he let us warm up. And then all of a sudden he puts 5 plates on each side of the bar. And if you don't know, if you don't lift weights, if you don't know what that is, that's 500 pounds, right? It's 495 pounds technically, but then we had these clips that also weighed about 2 pounds each, which bumped it up to basically 500 pounds. And so we're all looking at each other like, what the hell, we're not, there's no way we could do that, Coach. And Coach Stidham literally made each and every one of us get underneath the bar, right, and squat 500 pounds 5 times. Now, given there was a guy spotting us on either side of the bar that was basically lifting it up for us, and he was standing behind us, grabbing, our chests and basically pulling us up. But I remember getting ready to go into that squat rack, and I was like, holy shit, right? And you get in and you put your neck underneath it and you get it on your back, right? And it's sitting on your traps, and you just go to lift that 500 pounds, and it's the heaviest thing you've ever felt in your entire life, right? And then you're there, and he's making us do 3 reps each. And I remember going down, and I felt like I just completely dropped. And when I'm down at the bottom, he says, lift, right? And you start to drive up, and he's not just pulling you all the way up. He's making you do a lot of the work. So you're driving and you're fighting, and your lower body's squirming, your knees are buckling, and you're coming back out, and you're making all kinds of funny, funky, weird faces, right? And then you come up and you press and you press and you press, and you push your hips through finally, and you stand up, and then you hear 1. And you're like, oh my gosh, right? So he made us do 3 reps each, every single lineman. I think there was 12 or 13 of us. Every single varsity lineman, he made us do 500 pounds 3 times. None of us could actually do it. So by the time this workout ended, right, Coach Stidham was drenched in sweat, just dripping sweat. Freaking his whole shirt was soaking wet. But what happened there was he set a standard, right? And literally 1 year later from that time, every single one of our starting offensive linemen was able to squat 500 pounds. Literally. It was actually less than a year later, because some of us were able to do it over the summer, and then others, got there that next off season. But the environment that Coach Stidham created for us linemen in the weight room, the standards that he held us to, made us stronger than we literally would have ever been. There's no way. I don't think there was another coach. If I had any other coach or went to any other school, I would have squatted 500 pounds in high school. There was no way. And especially I was one of the biggest guys, right? There were guys on my team that were 5'10", 185 pounds. They squatted 500 pounds because of the environment, because of the standard he set for our work ethic, for our expectations, and for our minimum requirements of performance. He did the same thing on bench press with 315 pounds. He just had different standards, and that environment led to us being a pretty good football team. Now, as I fast forward a couple years later in college at UNLV, same kind of thing, right? You go in there and there's guys, you come in and you're benching 335 and you feel pretty good. You're power cleaning 285. And then all of a sudden you see guys that are bench pressing 450, and you see guys that are power cleaning 380, and just crazy numbers. And it automatically makes you step your game up, right? You have to step your game up. And now as an adult, as a man, right, 29 years old, I'm supposed to be stronger than I was when I was younger, but I'm not even close. And the crazy thing is I go to the gym more than I used to go when I was playing football, right? When I was playing football, we would lift 3 days a week. During the off season, we would lift 4 days a week. I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, every single week, and I am nowhere near as strong as I was when I was in those certain environments, okay? So that's one example. The second example I have for you, there was a gentleman, right? And I forget his name, but this gentleman lived in Minnesota, and he was trying to start a business, and forever he was trying to be an entrepreneur, and he was trying to start this business, and he was doing all these things, but he was broke. For 3 years straight, he was broke, right? He wasn't making any income. He was trying all these different tactics and all these different techniques and strategies to try to make money, and it just wasn't freaking working, right? For 3 years straight, this man made no money. He was broke. And then one day he decided, he's like, you know what, man, I'm going to move to San Francisco. There seems to be a lot of success out there. There's a lot of successful entrepreneurs, a lot of people in the tech industry. I'm going to move to San Francisco and start over. So he picks up his things, him and his girlfriend move out to San Francisco, and within a month of working there, he had met a couple different friends, a couple different people in business who were all making, high 6 figures or 7 figures, right? So they were all high income earners. Within 6 months, this man went from making $0 to making $100,000 within 6 months. Within a year, he was up to making around $300,000. And then obviously from that point on, I know his story through the first year, but from that point on, his income just continued to grow. But it was the environment that he moved himself into, right? It was the people that he surrounded himself with. So back to the question, do you believe that environment plays a role or has an impact on your outcomes? Well, there's 2 ways you can really look at it, right? From the stories I just told, you would say obviously, right? There's no question that your environment plays a role on your outcomes. And I would say, yes, you're right. You're right. Your environment definitely plays a role on your outcomes up to the point in which you let it. So that's the caveat, right? So an example is when I was in that weight room with Coach Stidham and squatting that 500 pounds and my other guys, the starters, were also doing it, right? We rose to the occasion, right? But there were other guys who ended up playing JV or who didn't end up playing at all that never rose to the standards, right? Same thing is, just because that guy moved to San Francisco and surrounded himself around all these successful earners and started making, 6 figures, 100,000, 300,000, making all this money, just because that happened doesn't mean that it'll happen for everybody, right? So yes, your environment plays a role, but only up to the point that you allow it to, right? Only up to the point that you're willing to engulf yourself into it. Only up to the point in which you're willing to immerse yourself in the environment. So if you go in and all you have on is blinders and hesitations because you're skeptical about everything, I don't care what kind of environment you're in, you're not going to change, right? Perfect example, when I went to Tony Robbins' event, Unleash the Power Within, one of the most powerful experiences of my entire life. I've never felt so high and so low all within the same hour, right? It was completely insane. If you've never been, I would highly recommend it. It's definitely a life-changing thing. I believe that's a large reason why I'm on this entrepreneurial journey that I am right now versus working a job and being an outside sales guy like I was for years. But back to my point. When I was at the Tony Robbins event, one of the things he kept saying throughout the whole 4-day weekend is, you got to play all out. You got to play all out. You got to play all out. And I remember the first day when I was there, there was this lady and her husband, and this lady had blonde hair, short blonde hair, and she had that what's it called, resting bitch face, right? RBF. And she was sitting there, and she literally never participated the whole time. I only sat by her day one. I don't even know if she showed up the rest of the days, but she was just sitting there with this face, just with a mean scowl. And anytime that the audience would be asked to participate, like we should stand up or we should jump around or we should, get hype or sing or yell or all this stuff, she wouldn't do it. She just sat in her seat, stayed there, literally didn't participate at all, 0% participation. She was like that little brat kid that's in class that the teacher, has everyone do some kind of fun thing, and this kid just tries to be cool, so he just sits there and doesn't do anything. She was being a brat, right? But here's the thing. That same environment, that experience for me and thousands of other people was life-changing, right? It was absolutely life-changing. But for her, it did nothing, right? For her, she probably left that event the same exact person she was when she went in. So with that being said, my conclusion is, yes, environment plays a huge role in your success, plays a huge role in what you're able to accomplish and what you're able to do. When you immerse yourself into a positive environment around people that are already achieving the things you want to achieve, you will absolutely have the opportunity to rise to the occasion. However, just because you're in the environment does not automatically mean you will rise, right? You rising to the occasion will all end up with being a decision that you make, right? You have to allow the environment to carry you and pull you, right? Otherwise, you just sitting in the same place and nothing will ever change. So think about it. What kind of environments are you putting yourself in, and are you allowing them to change you? Are you allowing them to pull you up, right? Or are you in negative environments, and are you allowing them to pull you down? These are all things we got to think about, because it's the little decisions that matter. I promise you, if you think about any major thing in your life, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your job, all these things, they all started with a little tiny decision. Something simple. You decided to hit up a girl in the DM, right? And now you guys are married. Or you decided to, maybe you decided to go to a restaurant and you met some guy there at the restaurant, and that's how you ended up with your job, right? There's a million different things that could have happened, but it's the little decisions that make the big difference in life. And with that being said, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow me on social media at Coach_AJ Lew. If you need some help figuring out what you want, what your goals are, make sure that you hit me up and join the Inspired Efforts Blueprint Facebook group. It's a private group, so you have to request access, and then I will add you, and you get the Inspired Efforts Blueprint 100% for free in the group, but it's only going to be for the first 100 people, and then after that, I'm closing the group, and from that point on, I will always charge $997 for the program. So if that's something you're interested in, hop in the group. The link will be down below. And other than that, man, hope you guys all have an awesome, amazing day, and I will see you in the next episode. Peace.